Classical art forms are like vast oceans. A dip in its pristine waters, and you will be swimming in it till eternity. It's a work of a lifetime, and for some, many lifetimes. Have you ever watched a beautiful performance and wondered what must be going in to be able to perform at that level of excellence? Clearly, we all know the response is Riyaaz. Do you think the word Riyaaz can be confined to the word practice? To me, it has way more connotations and references. Don't you wish they told you what exactly they do when they say, "Hum Riyaaz karte hain"? Well, these are the questions that intrigued me, and I decided to get some answers. Not to keep them with me, but to share with the world at large the vision of these artists, their secrets. Hence the series
Raaz Riyaaz Ka.
Namaskaram. We have with us on this episode an acclaimed practitioner of Nangniyaarkootha and Koodiyattam, which is one of the oldest living traditional theatre forms of the world. She was born in a family which is entrenched deeply in the arts, which provided her a very sound foundation. And now this artist par excellence is propagating this art form all across the world. Yes, we have none other than Kapila Venu, and it's an honor and privilege to have you on Raaz Riyaaz Ka Season 3.
Thank you, Prakshi.
And I like how someone has taken center stage. So Kapila tells me that most of the shoots she will have all her dogs around, and they were not here, let me tell you, till 3 minutes ago. The minute they heard, yes, we are ready, they have nicely come and taken these 2 spots, which are like the perfect addition to our beautiful setup. So talking about setup, Kapila, my very first question to you is, actually it's more of like an appreciation thing, because I feel it is such a blessing to have what you have. And I want to ask you, because all of us, so not all, most of us come from these matchbox size homes and rooms where we have to practice and do our riyaz. So how does this aid, how does this contribute to your riyaz?
So this entire space, all the land around us, it was my father's dream. He strongly believes that an artist needs their own space. It's like the bare minimum, and every student, disciple, anybody who comes to him for advice, he encourages them to do that. And this particular space, he actually came to Nangniyaarkootha, bought a little plot of land, and over like several decades, he's just been adding, whenever he has some money, he just like buys a little more so that he can protect the space. We drum and we sing, and there's music and noise and everything. So also to just keep the neighbors a little bit at a distance and have some green and wildlife and everything. So he likes to, it was really his dream to create a space for artists, not just us, but anybody who visits.
And I think what he has done is a remarkable service to the art, because I think there are hundreds, I mean, you can tell me the number of students who've come here to train under him. So it's a huge service to the art form by creating a space such as this and providing it to these students of art who want to pursue it further. I truly believe, and again not to take away from the work that your father Guruji Venu has done and his gurus have done for Kuttiyattam, you as the artist of this generation is taking this art form really across oceans. So do you feel let's say the sense of responsibility towards it? How do you handle that aspect? Because you're really popularizing this art form from what I can see.
I don't think of myself as the only one though, or Kuttiyattam has been traveling even before my time. Maybe my guru's generation was the first ones to step out, to go to Japan, to go to Europe, and so this was already on. But I just generally feel that, Kuttiyattam is a very special art form. It has like a very complex history. It came through all kinds of trials and tribulations, and it survived 2,000 years to the day. And the reason it kind of lived through even very difficult times is, I think, because it was always practiced in the temples as a family tradition, with a very strong feeling of duty towards the performance and bhakti and devotion. That was many times, especially in the recent times when Kuttiyattam, before it came out of the temple and it was within the temple, part of the rituals, the practitioners really lived on like bare minimum. The temples the patronage went down or never got upscaled. But still they continued that practice, and that kind of bhakti is like very strong. And I feel like my teacher, for example, Guru Ammanur Madhavacharya, he also is like just experiencing his being. He did things he had no idea about, the cultural scene or the cultural world outside of his world. And he didn't know about recognitions, or he never even cared about anything. He was just doing it because he thought it was the most wonderful tradition in the world to do. So, and then my generation comes where we start exploring and understanding like that there are other people doing other things, and this whole complex cultural world outside. And
world of collaborations,
world of sharing, interactions, meeting other cultures, questioning one's own practice. All of this came in, and it's been very, very engaging, very learning, very complicated, challenging. And sometimes I do feel pressure, and sometimes I feel like, what am I doing? I mean, what I'm doing is actually maybe not even deep enough. Sometimes I have those thoughts as well, but I still think, I keep going because I love what I'm doing.
But it's nice that you don't feel settled, because I think that would be a very difficult thing for an artist, because once you feel settled, then where does the thirst to take it further go? So I guess you're in the right space in terms of the physical space and the mental space. So coming to your art form, we always speak of space and time as a concept in performing arts, and I feel it is so relevant particularly to Kuttiyattam, because I've heard you speak about stretching time, manipulation of time, sharing time and space, where concepts such as the audience and the performer meet at a particular space, but the physical space that you may be showing and where they may be are not. Different ideas such as this. But what and how do you assess this space and time with respect to your form?
Kuttiyattam is actually very developed, or rather like, deals with space, time, manipulation in a very brilliant way, well thought out. Because what's very special about Kuttiyattam is, even though we perform Sanskrit drama, a lot of which came from the north, the way Kuttiyattam adapts these plays. We do follow the playwright's instructions, but really what we do is we take a part of a play. We don't even address the whole play. We don't care about the whole story. We take one part of the whole story and we make something else out of it, in the sense that we just use that as a tool to go into these detailed elaborations and these really indulging and finding, like opportunities to create something interesting.
To interject you, I've heard somewhere the love of Rama for Sita can go on for 16 nights. Is that true?
Actually, not the love of Rama for Sita, it's Ravana's love for Sita that goes on for 16 nights.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Kudiyattam is an art form that totally celebrates Ravana. We love Ravana. So that is a very good example. That play, Ashoka Vanikangam, goes on for 16 nights and it only talks about, it's basically Sita has already been brought into the Ashoka Vana. And it's Ravana's, each time he goes to meet and convince her, and it's about his love sickness and his intense admiration. And this goes on, and there are beautiful descriptions of Sita's beauty that can go on for 3, 4, 5 hours. Just describing Sita's Keshadi Padam can go on very, very long. And describing each of her features, her long hair can go into like multiple stories about, how...
Have you watched?
Yes, of course, yes. Even my guru, and all young actors also perform Ashoka Vanikangam. It's one of the main plays of our repertoire for male actors.
Just to remind everyone about how Venuji describes the mountain, and then it's like you just imagine that massive mountain just going up, and then it takes so long to come down. So I think these kind of ideas are just something that you can really appreciate in this form. There's also a saying that eyes travel miles where the physical body cannot, and I think that again resonates so much with Kudiyattam. So what is the importance of eyes? How do you train your eyes? And what all goes into the eyes? Riyaz for eyes.
So Kudiyattam is known often as Chakshusha Yajna, which can be interpreted as a sacrifice, a ritual sacrifice for the eyes of the spectator, but also a ritual sacrifice by the eyes of the actor. Wow. So basically, the actors, Kudiyattam is one form that has really explored a lot of the possibilities of using the actor's eye. Like you rightly said, we believe that the eye is the only part of the physical body, when associated with the mind, that can travel beyond, that can travel through space, time, realms, effortlessly, with effort of course, but has the possibility.
Seems effortless to the audience, of course, because I still remember that one performance, I think this was at NCPA, where you were just looking at Ravana's heads. If you want to just remind me of what that episode is, and it was engaging like I cannot tell you, because it just traveled the eye, which seemed like eternity to me. But that was the power of what you were trying to show with your eye.
So that particular episode is a very interesting episode in Kudiyattam, where it's again Ravana looking at Sita and observing himself. He's a witness to his own, looking at Sita, admiring Sita, and where each of his 10 heads have different reactions to Sita.
Yes.
Drenched by tears, longing, murmuring, and meditating, all kinds of 10 different reactions. So that is actually also another example of, just like one thing about Ravana looking at Sita turns into an hour or 2 hour long performance of of detailing, addressing each Ravana, being witness to how his 10 heads react and how he has to make peace between the 10 heads, because they start fighting over who is allowed to look.
So one thing here is, again, Raaz Riyaaz Ka is also not just about appreciating all these wonderful aspects of an art form, but also giving some tangible tools to play with, because there are young practitioners who watch this and they want something which they can hands-on apply to their regular practice. So at this point, when you are speaking about the eyes, is there something that you would like to suggest that someone can even start with, and how they can progress in training for something like this?
So eye training is very important in Koodiyattam. We spend a lot of time from very young. That is probably one of the first things that we start as a child. Around 5-6 years of age, we start learning to move our eyes. And the training goes on, it's intense, and it goes on, and it's a training that must go on through one's life to the end of one's career. It's not something that you can stop. So generally, the experience that I have is that over the past decades, a lot of practitioners from other traditions come to explore the possibilities of eye exercises from within Kuttiyattam, and they always end up saying that it sends a certain consciousness into the eye that was previously not there, and they almost always find that very helpful. They of course adapt the exercises to their form.
Correct.
But they just generally find it very helpful to have awareness of their gaze, to bring certain intensity, and playing with these intensities of gaze and things like that. So eye exercises are definitely something that can help people across different practices, actors and dancers and everybody. And I think also that in general it's very good for the health of the eye. So even yoga recommends moving the eyes. So yes,
Kanna sadhana is
Kanna
what?
sadhakam, yeah.
Okay. In fact, I remember in one of the first season, Meera I had interviewed, and when I asked her about her Riyaz, she has a whole section of her practice which is Kanna Sadhakam, and she has amply glorified what it has done to her as a practitioner of Bharatanatyam. So people across styles have, like you said, have been engaging in this kind of practice. Now we come to the aspect of breath, because I know Sir also lays so much importance on breath. Would you like to talk about breath in Koodiyattam, and also about practice towards awareness of breath, which can also help other styles and other practitioners?
So again, using the breath in Abhinaya, in invoking, evoking, and intensifying and playing with emotions, is something that is very specific to Ammanur Madhavachakyar's style of acting. So he actually, after his traditional training in his times, which is like several decades ago, in his time as a young student, he went to a place called the Kodungalur Kalari, which is a royal family in Kerala that had an actor's laboratory and scholars, especially Bhagavatar Kunyunni Tamburan. He was a great actor trainer, actor, musician, theatre practitioner and all of that. So he devised, through his research, an existing practice. The practice already existed, but he revived it in his laboratory, of how to use,
Maybe like a structure, he kind of...
how to manipulate the actor's breath to be helpful for acting, because the breath is the tool that actually really connects the mind and the body of the actor. So from him, Guruji was trained, and then from Guruji, all of my father has been trained, and all of us got the training of how to use the Vayu. And then later my father actually went on further his research on this, and he has been able to, Navarasa Sadhana is basically, a lot of Navarasa Sadhana practice has to do with this, using the judicious use of breath in acting. So this is again, I think, a very effective tool to connect to one's emotionality, Because as actors of any kind, we are expected to artificially create, feel, and behave, and just be in all kinds of emotional states at.
You may be in something else, but you have to recreate some other emotion.
All kinds of given spaces and in times, and like repetitions and so on. So it is definitely an effective tool for that.
But is there a conscious practice, that time that you dedicate, say, to breath, or is it now a part of your being, and it's just the awareness that your training gives you, that it automatically happens?
As of now, it's not a daily practice because you kind of figure it out. So breath is like that, but generally we do practice pranayama in order to keep our, just our physical and breathing condition in good shape. But otherwise, once every now and then, very personally speaking, I just like explore my breath. But otherwise, the practice is like sort of
Taking care of that.
Yeah, in the body.
The other thing that I've heard about you, Kapila, is you're a master of restraint. You may not know that and you may find it amusing, but the idea of restraint, the idea of not rushing, it is difficult, trust me, especially when it comes to, this is the world and age where we are talking about how difficult getting live musicians is. We are now, most of us are getting so used to music which is pre-recorded. So there is only that many times. There is no scope for manodharmam. There is no scope for elaboration, because okay, on this particular Sangati, I know I have to wind up because now the Pallavi is going to come back. In that, having the luxury of live musicians, but in that even taking advantage of that and mastering this restraint, is there a practice towards that? And what is your idea about how did you become the master of restraint?
I don't know. But I just can say this, that I am, on the one hand, really grateful that it is close to impossible to perform Koodiyattam with recorded music.
Yes.
So my general approach or sensibility towards performance, presence, practice has been deeply influenced by the teachings of my master from Japan, Min Tanaka-san. And I think this whole idea of restraint, I don't know if that is the right word though, but this idea of containing in order to intensify, holding a little back, stretching, all of this, some of it at least, just comes from me being in the space with Min. Over years, actually, it was a long, kind of an interaction. I think just Japanese sensibility in aesthetics is very strong influence in my life. The minimalism, the very, I don't know, the intensity of that whole culture.
I think intensity is the right word, because in a recent trip to Japan also, just the attention to detail that they give is so beautiful and heartwarming.
Yeah.
So I think that influence also trickles into
their definitely
forms.
Yes, very, very surely, yes.
So do you have like a ritual I'm moving into performance, but I'll come back to Riyaaz very shortly. I also wanted to talk about your interaction with musicians. Okay, let's talk about that first, since you spoke about live musicians. So what is a general Riyaaz like? So also I understand Riyaaz is different, practice is different, and rehearsal is different. So when you know you're rehearsing, there is a particular format. But if you just want to practice with them, what is your interaction like?
So in Kuttiyattam, it has always been the case that actors and musicians have lifelong collaborations, like just those.
I think your breaths are intertwined, because I keep saying in between I'm talking, and there are YouTube comments also sometimes that the interviewer should speak a little less. But it's so exciting, I have to talk about it. Where you do so many things, the musician is behind you, but it's like you all meet at the right point. I almost get confused, like how does he know? So how does that work?
The musician is not confined. He spreads his attention not just on the music, but he's as aware of the space, of the text, of the scope of each actor, the actor's tempo, all of these things. A musician is actually very deeply aware. And the main skill of the Mirava percussionist lies in being able to sense and follow the actor, and sometimes even guide the actor, and sometimes just everything falling into space, falling in place together. So that is like, it's a very interesting, like spontaneous relationship or a collaboration that keeps it. You have to renew it each minute. And I think the reason that it's possible is that we know each other very well. But you can observe that the musicians are good at following like any random actor also, like even somebody they have not worked with before. That is the skill that they basically develop. And as even traditionally, musicians are not just musicians, they have always been very scholarly. They used to know the text by heart. They have their own storytelling tradition. They also do something called Nangniyaarkootha, which is like in Koodiyattam, we have certain moments in the play where the musicians come in and tell the story or reiterate the story in the very local language. So basically they are very scholarly, very well aware of the happenings of the performance. So they're not just confined to their music. And I think that's why they have that high skill.
That chemistry and that coming together, that precision of the things that happen is just astounding. So coming to your typical day. So on a day like this, when you're home and you have to begin, what does your day look like?
My typical day has changed over the years with like changing life circumstances. Nowadays, my typical day would always start with like sending my son to school in the morning. And only after having accomplished that can I actually think of anything else that I can do. So usually after he's gone is when me and my musicians gather and we practice until lunch. And it's always better to have them. They're not always around. On some days they're not, but when they are there, the work is much more focused and consistent and so on. So we work until afternoon, till lunch, have lunch, and then usually it's like my own thing. Like I take a nap, I read, and wait for my son to come back from school. And evenings are when like I do like some other kinds of training as well, just for like physical conditioning. I do some strength training, sometimes yoga and pranayama, sometimes some cardio, go for a run, all of that. And then eye exercises, and then try to read as much as possible.
And also when you have, say, an upcoming performance, then automatically the focus changes to that particular activity.
Yes.
When you're creating new work, does it take a long time to kind of mull over it? What is that process like for you?
My typical process is that I decide to start something, and then I kind of get stuck in a sense, because I never can finalize anything. Like I keep thinking of different possibilities, and I kind of go in this flow until my musicians show up and say, like, now we have to do something. And they just sometimes make the decisions for me. Let's go with this, and this, and like put it together and like, finish the process. And that's almost always how it works. That I'm like always a little bit scattered and like thinking of all kinds of possibilities, and they come in like and put me on my feet again.
But that's so nice to have someone and a relation with someone who is able to do that.
Yeah.
So what is your ritual, say, on the day of a performance? Today you have a performance. So what is it any different from a regular day, or do you have a ritual pre-performance, post-performance? And by ritual, I don't mean like a religious or any ritual.
No, but
just
I'm generally a huge fan of rituals, both religious and non-religious, very personal rituals as well. And I think rituals are a great tool for many reasons to bring a seriousness to what you're doing. Formality is sometimes very essential, but also rituals are a great way of, giving the mind instructions. Like the mind is very like, it's the monkey. And often it can get very affected by things you do in performance and after performance, and when you're trying to, or you're affected by the way people react or don't react and so on. And to handle all of these things, I think rituals are a great tool. I have lots of rituals. In Kuttiyattam, we already have a set of rituals for performance day, where full shower with a hair wash and everything is compulsory on the day of performance. Then on the day of performance, we must meet our gurus who are in the vicinity, or take their blessings. It is a formal thing. You go and take the blessings, and before performance, you formally. Before going into the green room for makeup, you have to address, or you have to inform all your colleagues who are there for the performance. You meet each musician, you meet each co-actor, and you tell them, I am going to start getting ready. That is also a ritual that we do.
Wow.
We light lamps both on the stage and in the green room before starting. And once in the green room, we have the ritual of tying the ribbon, which kind of signifies transforming from the daily life into performance mode, where we are ritually exempted from all the mundane life events like hierarchy. You don't have to respect anybody who's higher than you, or you don't have to go out of your way. You can completely stay focused. And purity, pollution, all of these things are gone with the tying of the band, and you can focus on the performance. And then after performance, there's the ritual of taking off the headgear, which signifies severing ties with the character. You end it there. You don't carry the character back home.
I'm getting goosebumps as you're talking.
So,
so interesting.
So all of these rituals already exist. Personally, for me, I definitely have I like to write my script on the day or before the day of the performance, and I follow all of these rituals as well. And I have a certain way that I have to pack and unpack and repack and everything.
Wow.
And
I love that.
I like all that, and I like to have my things ready in a certain way before starting my makeup. And so I like all these. These are my rituals.
So you just spoke about the oil lamp, lighting of the lamp, and I know how significant is the presence of a lamp in a performance. Correct me if I'm wrong. It is believed that sometimes that light that emanates out of the lamp is the only area of performance, and it's considered to be like a meeting point for the audience. So can you tell us more about it?
When one uses the word secret, one feels it's something that should not be shared. It should be guarded. But why should knowledge such as this be guarded and not shared? If shared, it will only result in making better and more dedicated artists, and that in turn will only benefit the art. We are fortunate to have such artists in the series Raaz Riyaaz Ka, who are breaking the notion of their Riyaaz being a Raaz.
राज रियाज का